Welcome to another Blue Room Weekly with myself, Warren, and joining me on tonight's show, I've got John Wharton back with us, and also shortly later on, Dave Downey will be joining us, making his return to the Weekly. And we've had International Week, and we've got still a couple of games at the time of recording that are going to happen tonight. And then obviously we look forward to welcoming the Blues back this weekend when we go to Manchester City. And the first thing I want to ask, John, really, and welcome to you back again, is...
Cheers, Warren.
the City game, they seem to be hitting or approaching the heights of where they were a few seasons ago. Rodri's back, obviously. Haaland's on fire, which we'll talk a little bit about later. And they seem to be a team after, I wouldn't say a stuttering start, but maybe not hitting the heights that they can produce in the early part of the season. They look very firmly settled in now, and they look like a team that can threaten and can go for the jugular. So with that in mind, and with it being away from home, and we all know Moyes' record away from home against the so-called big clubs, even though albeit he's got a great record at Manchester City with Everton. Do you think we should treat this as a bit of a free hit this weekend and go for it?
No, I don't think it's in Moyes' nature to go for it. I think his idea of a free hit is guaranteed draw. I think, that's the only thing that'll... But I don't think City are at the... I think they're getting better than what they've been the last 18 months or so, but I still think they're vulnerable. I'm still not convinced by that defence. And I know people go on, but I think that Ruben Diaz, while he's got undoubted quality, can be got her. And, there's still some weak links there. They're not, not the City they were a few years ago. And I think with a sensible approach, don't go gung-ho, don't go just trying to kick our way through to the game and that, and just take a nice sensible approach, and there could be something in it for us. They're not unbeatable like they were 2.5 years ago. They got the vulnerabilities, they're still, they can be got. And I know we're missing Grealish, but there's still players there. We saw it last year on Boxing Day. I know Pickford saved a pen and we got a 1-1 draw, but I don't think they've improved that much since then. And I think we've improved a lot since then. And I think, there's a possibility we could go there and give a good account of ourselves. I'm not saying we'll win, but we could go there and give them something to think about. Whereas, for a long time, it's been our customary, certainly at Goodison when we played them, it's been a 3-1 beating where they've just not really got out of second gear. So I think there's a chance here on Saturday to just play a softly approach and then see where we go.
Yeah, I think I just think it's such a tough place to go, and I think they seem to be hitting form. I do like to see us sometimes go to these places and have a bit of a go, because if we're gonna lose and get defeated anyway, then we might as well, have a go in that respect. But I think you're right. I think obviously buoyed by the Palace results, and we've got some good players, which we've talked about for the last few weeks as well. I think it would be a bit naive, wouldn't it, just to go there, John, and completely go for the game, as it were, because City are the type of team who will find holes and will pick at it. So I think you've certainly got to go with a game plan.
Yeah.
But, I've kind of asked you there about the free hit element to this. Like you said, it's not in Moyes' nature, but do you think we've got a team now who can go to the likes of City and maybe go on the attack and maybe have the shackles released a little bit more?
Not yet. I still think there's some weak points. I still think in midfield, if we push too far up, we can be swamped, especially by the players that they've got. They got that Doc who's really... What was it? Was it Company who said this week that you could lose him in a phone box? He could lose you in a phone box. He's that tricky. Players like that. So what we don't want is ourselves too far up the pitch, then all of a sudden there's tons and tons of space in that middle bit, and our defence then gets pulled out. Then they'll just exploit us. And let's face it, we're at that stage still where we're much better than we were over the last 2 or 3 years. We're still vulnerable, and if we play like that against a team like City, they could stick 4 or 5, maybe even 6 past us. And I think to do that to us now would absolutely demolish our confidence. So I think we've got to be quite pragmatic about it and accept the fact that, we've got a point initially. Let's not go out there and damage our confidence. I know that sounds a bit fatalistic and a bit negative, but we have to be realistic. We've still, it's baby steps. This is what it's going to be under the Freakins. It's not going to be a City 2008, 2009 change. It's going to be gradual steps with different phases. And I think we have to accept that this phase at the moment, we're not in that kind of place where we can go and attack these teams.
Yeah, I think you speak a lot of sense there, John. And Dave Downey joins us now, and Dave's fresh from his trip to the States and going viral on the internet by getting the whole of Vegas Strip listening to Zed Cars. Welcome back, Dave, and welcome back to the Weekly as well. Dave, it is a fine balance, isn't it, between letting the shackles off a little bit and having it as a free hit, but also, as John says, being pragmatic as well and not letting us get overran, because City do have the ability to do that. Where do you stand on this fixture, and how should Everton approach it?
Yeah, I think what John was saying there's a lot of sense. I think we are twixt in between here, going to a place like this, because first and foremost, what John was saying there, you can completely blow your confidence out of water, can't you? Because you've got Spurs again. You've got Spurs the following week, who are one of those sides and in the higher part of the table. I mean, if you go to Manchester City and get absolutely destroyed, then, you know, what's Moyes thinking about when you're playing Spurs? It has a kick on effect, because you think, well, if we've gone and got battered at Manchester City, then that means I'm going to have to throw everything in the kitchen sink at Spurs, who are another side who are capable of coming at you and putting a few past you as well. So I think it is quite it's a tender place, really, isn't it? Having said that, I mean, I think you need to go with an expectation here of thinking if we get anything apart from a defeat, it's a bonus. And look, I think we'll have listeners probably kicking off at me like that, saying, "Well, look how far we've come since then." But again, I mean, I feel like I want to take John out for me dinner here, because I've repeated, I've got with what he said 3 times. I completely agree with it. When you go there, you can't just open up. You need to start with probably a deeper starting point for our defenders. This is the thing where I think Moyes is good at, though. I think he's made his craft like that in years gone by. Look, we've spoken at level like how different Moyes is since he was at the club 20 odd years ago. I think when we seen him gone and won a trophy for West Ham, the various clubs he's been at, I think he's come back to Everton with a real lesson in his career out of manager side. And I don't think he'll be going to Manchester City playing like 4-3-3 or anything like that. He'll be putting 5 men in midfield, I would imagine, and have better up front, which is the right way for us to go about there, because we don't have that sort of, I don't know what word I'm looking for here, but that sort of amount of a squad that's able to go and do these sides. You know, when you look at, you know, City against the shite, or you look at City against anybody, Arsenal, who are probably the main contenders there at the top of the league. When you watch that, it's an appointment to watch it, because you've got 2 sides who are proper going head to head. I don't think we're not in that place yet, if we're being brutally honest. Yeah, I think many fans will say go and have a go, and you've got nothing to lose. But I think we have got something to lose here. Not so much as dignity, but also being able to be in a more pragmatic's probably the right word that you've said there, in a season where we've had to be like that. You know, you look at what we went and did against Palace. Let's face it, that was a bonus when you're going into the last 10 minutes, the last 15 minutes when you're 1-0 down. You shouldn't have won that game. So, you know, you maybe put that into the context of going to somewhere like Manchester City thinking, well, we've bagged 3 points there when we probably shouldn't have last week, the week before last. You go to Man City thinking, do you know what, free hit, perhaps maybe going a little bit far, but I do understand that place where you're coming from to say that. And how he starts is, I mean, Dewsbury Hall's back. I know we'll probably go a little bit deeper into what sort of team you want to go and play there. But can we cause trouble there? Absolutely. You know, it doesn't. I remember when you've seen Crystal Palace go there in recent years, and they've absolutely destroyed Manchester City away. They are a funny side at times.
Brentford did it a few years ago as well, didn't he?
Exactly. Yeah, they can be got at, and let's face it, it's not the Manchester City of a couple of years ago. These are still rebuilding themselves. I mean, there was every talk that Pep Guardiola would be leaving last season because of how low they'd dipped in the Premier League and not being title contenders. It's not the Man City of old. They've got a load of top quality new players, as they always go and do every summer. But you know, let's see what you're going to go and do. How Moyes sets this up here. We'll be defensive. We'll probably won't have much of the ball, but set pieces is what we're good at. And you go there, you win free kicks. You've got every chance of scoring a goal there. So He just needs to be very careful about how he sets this up, because I was watching Doku last night against Wales, and he was ridiculously good. Probably, to all due respect to Wales, against lesser opponents. But he's somebody else who can tear it apart. It's ironic he's the man there that's taken over in a certain way from Grealish. So he's in a side there that he can tear somebody apart. You look at him, whoever's playing right back, they're going to have a really difficult afternoon, I would imagine. So there's aspects of this, like I say, we'll go into if we're able to win those sorts of battles. But yeah, I mean, if we get anything but a defeat, it'd be a massive bonus.
Yeah, my personal opinion, probably before I spoke to you two, was treat this a bit like a free hit and go for it. I think I've never really seen Everton in the last 10, 15 years go at a place like a City and really have a go, have a hit. And I've seen other teams, we mentioned there Brentford, we mentioned there Crystal Palace, who've done it in the past, and maybe they've got the players more suited to do that than what we've had in recent times. But after listening to you both, I think, Dave, you've made the really important point there about the Spurs game the week after, because I think, I don't want to look too far ahead because City's on immediate opponents next, but that Spurs game, I am looking at that, albeit that they've started really well and probably gone a little bit under the radar how well they've started as well. But I do look at that game as a game that Everton could go into with some confidence. So if that confidence is completely shattered by a really poor defeat at City, then you probably don't go into that game as hopeful. So I think, though, John, looking ahead, it probably is right, isn't it, to get that confidence and make sure that confidence is still there, because, we'll talk about a little bit about it later, but we're obviously without Jack Grealish. There is going to have to be a few changes. You want to keep the momentum to a degree what we've had, and particularly after that Palace game as well. You want to keep that going for that Spurs game, don't you? So, as David said, pragmatism's probably, and as you said as well, pragmatism's probably the best thing going ahead, isn't it, for this game?
Yeah, but that's football, isn't it? I mean, we would all love to see Everton playing free-flowing football like we did back in the 80s, but that's not where we are now. So we have to accept where we are and work it from there. And we say about Palace and Brentford going there, but they had a go, but they didn't go out gung-ho. For lots of those, for a large percentage of those games that those teams played, they were under pressure. But the counter-attack, because City are, the way City play, they're expansive, so they're open and vulnerable to the counter-attacks. And, Palace had players like Eze and Elise at the time. Brentford had Mbuemo and, people like that. And Ivan Toney, who are good players. We haven't really got those players. We've got Beto, who, God loves a trier. But he's one of those players who could break and 40 yards clear of the next defender and stand on the ball. So, he's not as composed as the likes of Mbuemo and Elise and that. So we have to go with what we've got. If the situation was different and it was Ndiaye running through the middle, you'd absolutely 100% fancy him to score. So you've got to tailor it. So ours isn't going to be like that. We're going to have to try and play our way through. And as Dave said, we're probably going to have to rely on set pieces. We're a bigger team. Our biggest goal threat at the moment is probably Michael Keane from a set piece. Yeah. So, it's not a case of you've got to, it's horses for courses. In a couple of years' time, hopefully, we will have a team that we can go there and have a go at them, because they can be got at, and we've seen other teams go there. But at the moment, the gap with what they've spent and what we've spent is so astronomical. It's ridiculous to expect us to go there and outplay them. I know that's not what you were saying, but some fans do think that we should be going there and, Brazil 70 them. If we do that to them, they'll stick 8 past us. They're that good.
Yeah,
and we're not that team yet to play that.
Yeah, I fully agree, and I think I'm probably with me championship manager back in the day going all out attack on a computer game. I've probably got a little bit of that going on in me head, but I don't know. I just think I'd like to see now and again, particularly in these games which do feel like a free hit, and maybe that's too strong a term. I would like to see Everton maybe just play a little bit more expansive, but I think, as you both eloquently said so well, that it does leave you susceptible, and you can easily be opened up by a team like Man City. We are obviously, we've hinted at a little bit there in the earlier chat, we are obviously without Jack Grealish. He can't play against his parent club, currently on loan, obviously, from Manchester City as well. And I think that, a lot of our football has gone through that left-hand channel. I've heard you, Dave, say before about the fact it's a bit like the kids in the playground who's good at football, really good, and you give the ball and you go on, then do something with it. And we have directed a lot of our play through that. He's got a bit of a break now, obviously not involved in the England side, so he's got a break that week, and then he's going to have a break this weekend as well, so hopefully he'll come back fresh for the Spurs game. But Everton have got to probably go at this in a bit of a different way. They've probably got to go at this tactically in a bit of a different way, because we won't have that same threat that we've got with Jack Grealish, and we probably have to figure out a slightly different way of playing. Is it too simple to say that, obviously I know Dewsbury Hall comes back into the team following his suspension, but is it too simple to say that Dewsbury Hall slots back in and then we play Njai wide and maybe Charlie Alcaraz wide as well and have Dewsbury Hall through the middle? Or do we change it differently to maybe combat the threat that City have got? In terms of team selection and missing Jack Grealish, how do you see Everton going, Dave?
Yeah, it's a really interesting way of looking at this, isn't it? And I think the important thing to emphasise about that is we do have options. Taking away the fact who the opponent is. One thing I just want to add to do with what John was saying, we do have the power to counter attack these days. I think Beto aside, we've got quite a bit of pace. You've got players there who can turn the ball around. We did that against Palace quite a bit when things were getting better in the second half. You've got Ndiaye there, who's always an outlet. Grealish the shame, even though I think he was actually really good, well, a little bit better defensively, let's say, because that's probably the one criticism that many people have had, is that he won't track back with Mykolenko and double up on whoever's coming forward there, and I think opponents target that. I feel as if the one where this could be quite ironic, I think, is our outlet is constantly Grealish, isn't it? And one of the criticisms I've had of Moyes so far is it's quite predictable. When we haven't done well in large portions of games, even more so, it's gone to Jack Grealish, and he's waiting for somebody to run past him. He's waiting to be able to cut inside, and it has been predictable for the opposition because they've simply just doubled up on him, or in many cases tripled up on him, because that's Everton's way of creating a goal-scoring opportunity. And the other thing as well you throw at him is he needs to shoot a lot more. I think a few people have said that. I'd like to see him on goal, but in this, I think City will be Guardiola will be looking at this thinking maybe could double guess himself here, thinking how Everton will set this up. If they are going to counter-attack, do you put Dibbling in over there? Perhaps not. Perhaps this is too big of a game to hit for him because he hasn't exactly started well. I know he's a kid, and I don't want to criticise him too much, but he's got a lot to learn, and that's who we've signed. We've signed a player like that who have a lot to learn. I think to throw him in there at the deep end, maybe he'd learn a lot. Let's put it that way. But I don't think he'd be the answer to put in there. I think Alcaraz has to come back in. I say come in, because it's. I have no idea. I mean, I said this a couple of weeks ago. What is there been some sort of issue here? Because I think he should be one of our starting players, regardless of what system you want to play. I think if you put him in a slightly, say if you were to play the old-fashioned, the diamond shape of a midfield, you put him at the head of that, wouldn't you? Really, if you're behind the striker, and having Ndiaye and Grealish on the other sides, I'd like to see him come back in. He was a game changer when he came in against Crystal Palace. I feel as if he's been unlucky to lose a starting place in the side as well. I think you're looking at it and thinking, well, okay, if you've got Grealish there on the left, are you going to try and go like for like and put somebody in there, or do you change this over and Everton don't go and play towards that side as we have done every game since we've had Grealish? And I think it becomes the balance of that side becomes very different without him there. So I'm keen to see what Moyes does there. Does he want somebody who's going to stay on the touchline, like a Grealish? He gets the ball and you've got Dewsbury Hall and move over to him or anything like that. I don't think that's the answer to this, because let's face it, when they're going the other way, they've got so many top class players there that if you've got on that left hand side loses the ball, then they've got to sprint as fast as they can all the way back there. If it's Mykolenko behind them as well, so. I think we'll go a little bit more narrow. I think Ndiaye will come inside a little bit more. And Alcaraz, I think, would be the player to come in for Grealish. And Moyes is able to do a little bit of changes in terms of how we set this up as well. I mean, you look at, I mentioned it on Blue Monday, does he start even looking at Dwight McNeil? I say even looking at him, because it looks to me if there was another week in the transfer window, he probably would have left, wouldn't he? Let's be honest.
It feels
Is
that
he
way.
somebody? Is he somebody there you've got on the bench to come in, and you need somebody like that who's able to hold the ball up? And I think that overall for me is the key to this, and this is why I probably will go on Beto here, which people have seen him as a bit of a laughing stock and things like that. He pretty much got an assist against Palace. If you want to throw it in that direction where he should have put that in.
Well, second half.
He did, but he's going to have a role in this, I think. Or Barry, who, as we've seen so far, pretty much look like the same player when we're putting them on here, and lads who are struggling to hold the ball up. You need that to happen here. So with that in mind, I think we can be a side that don't have to hoof it up. We don't have to be somebody who plays a diagonal all the time. You don't have to be Pickford when he gets the ball, looking for Grealish to play the ball. Dare to say it, we can pass it. Dare to say it that we can play through a system that we've got there and keep the ball on the floor. It doesn't have to be straight up. So they're in mind. You've got Beto, who's going to be crucial there in one way or the other, because I don't think he's great as a header, and many people would say he's not great with it on his feet either. But we're not going to start anybody else, him or Barry. So let's have a look at this in a different way. I mean, many have said, and me included, do you put an Alcaraz or an Ndiaye maybe in a sort of false nine position there and get everybody in and around to push on and not isolated, much the same way we do with Beto when we're in a defensive way. So I'm keen to see this game. I know a lot of people are dreading it. I'm really keen to see what else we've got up our sleeves there. Can go on a result, stupidly to say it, but result aside, how we can go and set up against one of these sides. It could be something that we look at doing all the time. This, if we're able to go and do something that gets a lot of positives away from it. And you know what you've said there about a free hit, and like you said there, being going a little bit far with it. I'll probably go a little bit further and say it's a kind of FA Cup tie, if you get what I mean. So you go there, and Everton are going to be dogs in this game.
That feels like a good. That feels like a good way of saying it.
I feel that's how you do in a game where you say there you've got nothing to lose and stuff like that. And I just don't want us to go there and have any momentum and a positive feeling taken away from us. Now, many people will say if you lose, then that automatically happens. I don't think that's the case. I think Everton can go there, put in a good enough performance and still lose it, yet still move away from the Etihad thinking that our season is not being declined. It's not being thrown to one side. It's not being must-win games, because we're at the early days of the season, 7 games in. If Everton lose at Manchester City and you look at the league table, there's not going to be that much of a difference between us and the European place, which is exactly, I think, what Moyes has said we're going for here. So let's go there and have a go. And it sounds very, very small time, doesn't it? But that's the position we're in right now. We're a growing side. We're an ever-growing side. We're with ambition. We've got everything set up now where Everton can kick on and get towards a Manchester City. I haven't got their money, probably won't have their money for quite some time, or the way football finances work these days, which is ridiculous, aren't they? But Everton are on the move up. Go to Manchester City and see what you can do.
There's a wider point, and I've thought about this for a couple of weeks now, probably since the Palace results and before, because I was really unhappy with the West Ham game, for instance. I didn't think we showed enough to really go and win that, and I really felt we should have won that as well. And then you see what happens against Palace, and but for a last minute goal, it's another draw, which I probably would have taken with the form they were in and how they are as a team at the moment. And I think you're absolutely right, and it's probably a conversation for another show at another time. But the wider point being is we are in the middle probably of those 2 games. I don't think we're a terrible team. I don't think we're quite yet world beaters, and it is going to take time. And I think the way things are set up at the moment, we are going to have games where they might surprise us. Look, we might go to City at the weekend and pull off a victory. And I think we'll get results like that with the players we've got and with the squad we've got and with the manager we've got. I think the manager is a lot more, so we say, shackles off than probably he was in his first spell. He's still got that tendency in him, of course he has, but he do feel like he's got a big performance in him now and again sometimes, and I think he will get that elusive away day victory that he never got as Everton manager eventually. But we're also going to suffer from games like the West Ham game and probably like the Wolves game in the Cup, where we maybe don't hit the height that we expect them to, because we are that team that is in, I don't want to say transition, but it is a growing team, as you say. So we're probably in the middle of somewhere of that. And I think, as I said, that's a wider point that we can discuss maybe, on another show at another time. But just going back to team selection, John, I mean, I think he'll probably go with, like Dave said there, Alcaraz coming in maybe in a wide right position, Dewsbury Hall through the middle as that 10, maybe sitting a bit deeper in that bit narrower position, should we say, when we haven't got the ball. I think Njai goes on to the left, and I think probably James Garner slots in alongside Garner Gay. Do you think that's the team he goes with, or do you think we might see a surprise and he might go for maybe, I don't know, we talked about last week at James Garner at right back, depending on Michael Keane's injury, he might have to go with Dewsbury Hall in a deeper position, maybe in midfield, and play Alcaraz as the 10. How do you see it going in terms of team selection this coming week? Sorry, mate, you're on mute.
So
I wish we had a quid for every time that happens every single podcast.
Keep that in. Keep it in.
Yeah, I'll keep it in. Yeah.
On,
some people might say I sound better on mute. So, but yeah, I don't think he's got. Moyes isn't one of those. He's not going to do anything too adventurous. Moyes is he's a straight shooter, isn't he? He's not going to suddenly pull out some 17-year-old from the youth team and go, we're going to play him now. He's going to play Alcaraz. If Keane's fit, he's going to play O'Brien at right back. He loves a full-back and a centre-half, a full-back, Moyes. So, at the moment, we want to try and keep as many, if maybe not square holes and square pegs, at least rectangular holes and rectangular pegs and square holes. So I think he'll want to try and keep Garner in the centre of the pitch, and he'll want to try and keep some form of strong defensive shape. So I don't think there'll be any surprises barring injuries.
And just, John, coming back to you a little bit on, Man City. If I'm them and we're talking as Man City fans, and maybe Guardiola and a few of their fans watched us against West Ham, and I think that was, I don't think he's had many games where he's struggled, and I don't think he's done too badly as fullback, but I think that was a real telling point for me for Jake O'Brien. He really struggled against Crysencio Somerville, who played for West Ham on the wing, and I think it was Juve who was the left back for West Ham, and they really did a number on us that game, and I think that's how they managed to get back into the game. You mentioned Doku there. I've always been a fan of Doku. I think he's flattered to deceive in a couple of games, and he looks like he's running down a cul-de-sac a lot of the time, but particularly this season, he's added real threat to his game. He looks like he's going to score every time he gets it. I think he's chipped in. I might be wrong with this, and I might not have the correct stats to back me up when I say this, but I think he's chipped in with a few assists as well, and he certainly looks like the player who Guardiola wanted when he first signed him, and he's taken that year or two to develop. But if I'm City, I'm going to give the ball to Doku on the left-hand side every time and tell him, run at Jake O'Brien, because I think what Jake O'Brien's done, as well as he's done, and as well as he's covered in those positions, he has struggled against pace and direct pace as well. Maybe not stride for stride struggle, but in terms of someone going at him and running in behind him, he really struggled against West Ham. So Doku's obviously the threat, but if I'm Man City again, I'm looking at, we talked about it last week on the weekly. I mean, how are we going to keep Alfinger Haaland? I keep saying that, Alfinger Haaland. It's Erling Haaland, of course it is.
Yeah.
I wish it was Alfinger,
no problem. He's like 56
That'd
now,
be all right.
I think even Mikalenko might do well against him.
Be all right against him, yeah. Erling Haaland, of course. How are we going to keep him? How are we gonna keep them two quiet though? I mean, they're the threat. They're going to be the main threats, them two, against our back line, which has struggled. Fair to say.
The thing with Alfinger Haaland is, do you remember the New Year's Eve game under Lampard? Was it under Lampard? Yeah, it was under Lampard, wasn't it?
You've just called him Alfinger Haaland again.
You've just called him Alfinger as well.
Did I? That's who I'm on about. Do you remember that game under Lampard when Alfinger Haaland played when he was like 50? The thing, actually, no, I said the thing with Haaland. I'm sure I said that. You
definitely said Alfinger, but we know what you mean, Erling Haaland.
Yeah, Erling Braut Haaland then.
There you go, yeah. Not many would know that.
That's sad, aren't I? He can be got at in terms of mentally. Do you remember that game, the New Year's Eve game? Was it under Lampard or was it the Arsene Benitez?
Yeah, it was when Damari Gray scored that equaliser, wasn't it?
I think it was.
City had won like 7 in a row or something, hadn't he?
Yeah.
And he stepped up, didn't he? And Damari Gray got that. But I know what you're going to say, and there's the famous meme that's been done about it off the back of that. But go on, continue what you were going to say, John.
Godfrey had him rattled mentally, not physically, but Godfrey was just absolutely on him all the time. Now he still scored that game, I think, Haaland, but his head wasn't at it. After he scored, he was too busy arguing. And I think Tarkowski's got it, or maybe not Michael Keane, because Michael Keane's probably the nicest person in the world, isn't he? You know, he's not that kind of centre half. He's going to try and get in someone's head. But Tarkowski's, and I mean this in the most positive way, he can be a bit of a knobhead. And, you know, that's what I like in me centre halves. So if you can get in his head a little bit and get him focusing on the little niggling things, he can be distracted a bit. And I really think that's his only weakness. Other than that, I mean, obviously I can't stand him. I just hate his celebration. And he looks like Plug from the Bash Street Kids. But he is almost the completely perfect striker. So,
I mean, there was talk, wasn't there, Dave, the other week, while you compose yourself there, there was talk the other week from a few pundits about him potentially being maybe not the best striker the Premier League scene, but definitely the best goal scorer. And I think he's going to be on his way if he stays at City for that 10-year contract or whatever it was he signed. He's definitely on his way to breaking or looking like he's going to break Alan Shearer's record, Premier League record, that is. And I don't think there's been a striker for a while that has really struck fear when he's hitting the ground running and when he's on one that Haaland does. I mean, I've looked again over the international break and he scored another 2, I think, for Norway against Israel. And he just looks, every time he steps onto the pitch, he just looks like he's going to score. And I mean, I'd imagine the betting odds for him to score any time are going to be next to nothing for the game against us, because he just seems to be hitting the back of the net at every opportunity. We've got to be really on it, haven't we? I think as well as Tarkowski and Keane, mostly Michael Keane and that as well have played, I would have felt more confident with Branthwaite in there just to match maybe that physicality and that pace. Saying that though, I remember the game, I think it was the season before last, he put Branthwaite on his arse as well, didn't he? As you know, in the game that we lost there. But we do have a fairly decent record at City to where we can maybe, like John said, if we can wind them up and get something off the counter, then that's a way of keeping them quiet. But our back four, especially our full backs, are really going to have to be on the game, aren't they, against this fella? Because he is just supreme, isn't he?
Yeah, he's again, nicest term possible for him. He's an absolute freak. I don't think we've seen anybody in terms of a traditional striker who are able to do what he can. And I think if he stays at Manchester City, he's going to blow Alan Shearer's record out the water. And you know, I feel as if last season was probably the weakest spell he's had since he came to the Premier League. And he still bagged over 20 or something. I don't know what the record is, but he still scored goals. I think he was injured for quite a spell as well. But it's when a player has everything. You referred to a little bit about Championship manager or football manager back in the day there, Warren. He's the type who has 20, everything, absolutely everything, apart from that mentality thing that John was referring to there. Am I saying that's the only option to be able to unsettle him? Well, probably it's the main one. But you're able to bump him around, and again, you referred to Tarkowski, who can be a bit of an arse, can't he? And I'd love it, and he's done it before. You know, you've seen him do it against Liverpool. He's able to do that. He has that sort of. So sometimes that feels like we're hammering Tarkowski, but sometimes I look at his face and think I'd want to chin him. And I think, you know,
just on him, Dave, dead quick.
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt. Just on him, dead quick. As much as probably a lot of fans have been critical of Tarkowski, and I don't think he has started the season that great. I think he could do a lot better. I think if there's anyone in the team who would be up for rattling or relish the opportunity or relish the challenge of playing against Haaland, it would be him.
Oh yeah, I think that's right, and I think that, you know, if you don't relish playing against probably the best striker in the world at this moment in time, then You really shouldn't be playing professional football as a central defender, should you? I think Keane similarly as well. I mean, out of the physical side of things, Keane's probably the one you want next to him, because at least aerially he's got a lot of he has to compete against Keane. But then, you mentioned before the pace he's got as well. You can play the ball to him in any way, and he's able to shift so quickly. I mean, the way he sprints, I like watching him when he sprints, when he gets the ball deep just after the halfway line, and it's like he takes one step for everyone else's 5. He's just so quick. So that, I think that adds to the fact I was saying about Everton have to play deep here. And I think you're right. I think the problem becomes if you're able to nullify his challenge, you've got loads of other players in and around him that everyone else has got to address. So can you keep Haaland quiet? Like you say, in a bookies, they're probably going to go ridiculously odds on. Some bookies might not even take a bet on Haaland scoring against 99% of the. I think he's the only team he hasn't scored away at is Liverpool. I've seen that stat. That's the only place in the Premier League he hasn't gone away and scored against. Everyone else he's gone rampant against. So yeah, I mean he's going to be something that you have to deal with on his own. He's like an entity on his own, as well as the rest of Manchester City, isn't he? Who are also top class side. So look, I know we're proper up the arse of Manchester City here, but I think that's the realistic approach here, isn't it? That you've got to physically get at these more than anything else. You're not going to outplay them. Let's face it, you're not going to outplay them.
No.
Referred to set pieces, referred to having a physical aspect against them. That's where Everton are at right now. Going back to what John said, Everton are in that position where we're a progressive side. We're looking to kick on. We're going in the right direction, the right trajectory, all that sort of thing. But you need to sort of take a perspective of who you've got to come up against here. And I think if there's a manager, I think you look at Moyes over the years, if there's a manager there that really needs to frustrate their opposition, then Moyes is probably that. Are we going to go there? A fan's going to moan that we don't have a shot on target? Well, yeah, probably, but I think that's the best way of taking City is you're in with 20% possession and you've just got to defend. You've got to stay at the back and hope at some point you've got an outlet. When all of their players are in our half, you're able to counter-attack. You're able to get it on Dyer who's quick. You're able to get an Alcaraz who's quick. And then maybe you go get a goal at the other end. And then I do remember a few years ago when Rooney scored really early on in that game. So we had that purple away kit, if you remember. And I think it was.
I do remember. Yeah,
I think it was Mason Holgate of all players who made a massive mistake and they equalised. And on that day, it was a similar what we might well see going to them this weekend. Loads of possession, but Everton were able to get the ball out in wide areas, able to turn them around a little bit, and we went and scored, went 1-0 up, and that completely changes the whole part of a game. If Everton went 1-0 up there, I mean, that's real things to think about there for Guardiola and everybody else, isn't it? So go, score a goal. You got every chance of getting something.
Do you know what? You just saying there about Rooney's goal, it comes to my mind then. We've had a few mad things happen at City. Do you remember Stecklenberg saving the 2 penalties as well? Tamari Gray out of nowhere. We talked about earlier scoring that unbelievable goal. And even last season, I mean, this was in the midst of Dice doing his, or setting us up where we just didn't look like we were ever going to score. We went 1-0 down, and then Njai out of nowhere plucked that goal out, of the air, and it was a brilliant goal as well. So we have got previous in getting a result there. So hopefully we can go and do the same thing. But it is definitely going to be a challenge. It's definitely going to be a test. I think it'll be interesting to see where this Everton team is at the moment, as it currently is, and how they fare. Because I don't think we've really faced anyone yet of true note, other than obviously the away derby. But it'll be a challenge, and it'll be interesting to see. Just one note as well before we move on to talk about the last subject we want to talk about is I read a little piece earlier about the fact that the Republic of Ireland manager is looking at potentially calling up Kieran Dewsbury-Hall. I'd imagine he'll want to try and get in the England team, John, but he's not been called up, I don't think, to any squads that I can remember off the top of my head. So maybe that's an option for the likes of him. It's strengthening the Ireland team straight away, but with playing international football, what do you think about that one?
Yeah, I mean, he's got the most English sounding name ever. And the old joke is he sounds like a National Trust venue or somewhere to have your wedding. But he's not going to get picked for England. There's certain faces that fit, and I'm not sure having a face like Jeffrey Dahmer is going to fit with the England. There's already one potential serial killer in the manager, so no, he's not going to get picked by England. He's going to play for Ireland. It's a better country anyway. Sorry if there's any England fans here, but
Well, do you know what? That'll nicely segue us on to international football, because I do want to talk about this.
I know you listen.
Yeah, well, as I said, this will lead us nicely into this conversation, because, John, if I come back to you first again on this, is I read another piece, I think it was in the Times this week. Apparently, UEFA are looking at making a bit of a change, or just doing something different with these international weeks, because there seems to be, as we led to believe from this piece, that there's a lack of interest both from television companies and the broadcasters, who are maybe not seeing the viewers or the viewership as high as they'd like. And I think that we all feel a little bit like we have a full summer without Premier League football, or without football happening week to week on a Saturday. We play 3 games, then we're into an international break. We play another 3 games, and there's another one. I believe there's another one again, like there always is next month as well. It's very stop-start, isn't it? The start of the season. And I know Dave's been very vocal on this, and I think we all feel the same, that we just don't like international football. We don't mind it when it's a summer tournament, and obviously we've got the World Cup to look forward to in this summer as well, in America, Mexico and Canada. But I mean, you yourself there, you've just quite openly said you're not too fussed about it either way. Do you feel a bit frustrated when it gets to international week as much as the rest of us? And are you just ready for it to be over and find it boring like the rest of us do?
Well, in some ways, I liked international week, certainly under Dyche, because it was a week away from Dyche, wasn't it? It was a week away from terminal boredom. But on the whole, I couldn't really care less about. I would rather Everton won a throw-in than England win the World Cup. I genuinely do not care about the England national team. For many, many years, it was full of buttes like Terry, Ferdinand, Gerrard, Lampard. I know he's our manager, we like him now, but I couldn't stand him at the time. It's just full of fans from other clubs that come up here and they give us your poverty chant. And so, no, I'm not going to back you. And I'm not interested in seeing England play a load of cowherds from some former Russian Federation state. I couldn't care less. Just leave it. Just play the national.
But in general, John, if I come away from England now, in general, because I know obviously they have these set dates in the calendar, don't they?
Get into them. I'd rather play club football. I've got no interest in international football, really. I haven't watched a single minute of any of this football.
This is the point, though, isn't it, Dave? Because they've got to have it somewhere in the calendar. And look, why they've created the Nations League, I don't know. I mean, I suppose it was for the lesser nations to give them an opportunity to progress, or, have that bit of a level, because it got a bit stale, didn't it? The likes of San Marino turning up to, Portugal away and getting beat 10-0 all the time. It was just a waste of the game, really. And, I suppose maybe that was why it was brought in, and to keep the top nations playing against the top nations, the bottom nations playing against the bottom nations, whatever it might be. It's got to be somewhere on the calendar. But what's the answer to this? I mean, if you wait for it turning around and saying, we want to change this because we understand that there's not much interest. I mean, what do you do? Because you've got to get qualifiers in. You've got to get games in. I mean, do they have a set time maybe in September where they go, right, we're shutting the league off for a month, and then that's it for the whole year?
No.
Do we do something along those? I mean, John's quite vocal there saying no, Dave. What's the answer to it? What's the answer?
Battening. I mean, I can't stand international football. You've probably got the 2 people on here who, if you ever want to talk about international football, and me and him will go off and do our own thing. Because with the internationals, look, the one thing I do like about it is on the even years, it covers a tournament in the summer. So if you're having your little bit of fix of footy, then that's fine. But even then, I mean, it was a Cape Verde or something.
Cape Verde, yeah.
They qualified for it yesterday, which is great. I like that. I like those stories, and working at the BBC, like World Service and all that. Love that sort of thing, and they'll go really deep on it and stuff. I do like that side of stuff when there's stories, I like stories about it.
Yeah.
But it's so mundane. It's a hard thing to watch. The Nations League, let's face it, is still, I wouldn't even go as far as saying glorified friendlies. They're still friendlies, aren't they? Even though they've got, for the so-called lesser nations, they've still got a carrot to dangle in front of them, saying, you can go into a different pool or something, or you're able to qualify for the Euros. And the other thing as well that's done it a lot of disrespect is making it that 3 teams in a group can qualify, which I think is absolute nonsense. You can go into it and lose. Well, you can draw all 3 games. You can get into the knockout rounds of the tournament without winning a game. Don't see that. I mean, I think UEFA were also talking about increasing the amount of teams that are going to be there from 32 to 64. I mean, they're making it worse. If they're looking at real ways of doing it, making a change doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be any better. And in my opinion, it's getting worse. Where do you play it? Well, you take away the amount of windows that there are, and I think in a funny way, I think clubs will relish the fact that there's international windows, particularly the ones that have a hell of a lot of players who go away to play for their countries. They're probably welcomed in terms of having a break from the Premier League and the games they've got coming up. For instance, with ourselves, I always find it that we get in a bit of momentum. Then there's an international break, and you come back flat as a pancake. We've gone and done that against Crystal Palace there when you've got a real sort of head of steam coming up. Other times it's great, isn't it? Because you just can't be arsed with Everton, and that happened a lot under Dice. The games themselves though are not really competitive, are they? Let's be fair. You look at the group stages to get in the World Cup qualifiers, because it's seeded. You're gonna get. I mean, look at the Wales group there. It's North Macedonia. You've got to play. There's only Belgium in that group. And then you're all battling it out. Well, obviously, they took a while because there's been a couple of really good games there, to be fair. That Belgium against Wales last night was good. The 4-3 was probably one of the best games I've seen there, to give it some sort of credence on what it can actually be in terms of what.
I'm sorry to interrupt as well, Dave, but just another story. I mean, a lot's been made about Isak obviously not starting as well for Liverpool at the moment since his move from Newcastle, and they're going on strike, and how it's affected Liverpool. Now it's also affected Sweden, because I'm just looking at their group. Switzerland are top, but Kosovo are currently sitting second in a playoff spot, 6 points ahead of Sweden, and you'd have Sweden as automatics really in previous years, just going to big tournaments. Sweden are currently bottom after 4 games with 1 point. And I'm just looking as well. Yeah, I'm just looking as well across. I mean, I read a story as well about the fact that the Faroe Islands, for instance, they beat Czech Republic last night, I think it was, and they've got an outside chance of getting a spot as well for a country like the Faroe Islands, who are, I think, a sovereign state of Denmark. I mean, the points I'm making is to play devil's advocate. These are feel-good stories, aren't they? And I think the likes of Scotland, Wales, and even Northern Ireland in recent years who've qualified for tournaments, I think for them, it's good. And I think there's a lot of people from countries all over the world who have followed the national team and are really passionate about the national team. It's good for them. And I think maybe because in this country we're so obsessed, if you like, or we're so much in a Premier League bubble that we don't like it. It's part of our culture that the Saturday watching the big game and all that sort of thing. We don't like it when it goes. And I'm with you. I mean, look, I'm not the biggest international football fan by any stretch, but I do occasionally. I mean, I was saying to John just before we started recording, I watched the Scotland-Greece game the other night when they were 1-0 behind, and you think, well, typical Scotland, they're going to, fail, flatter to deceive and lose again, but they come from behind and won. It was a really good game. You mentioned the game last night, Wales. I thought that was a brilliant game against Belgium, a really entertaining game to watch. So there is quality to it, isn't there? I just worry, is it a Premier League thing? Is it an English thing that we don't enjoy it where perhaps other countries do? Or, do we like these feel-good stories about the likes of the Faroe Islands, what we said, Kosovo there, who are currently sitting in a playoff spot? Or does something fundamentally need to change in the way they do international football and fitting it around the calendar?
Well, the proving that it's working, I suppose. When you mention those sort of underdog stories, everyone loves an underdog story, don't they? And Yeah, I like to hear that. It's something that John's shaking his head there. Mute him. The thing that got me this week the most, right? Just to one side here, the thing that got me the most was that it's massive week for us with Jordan Pickford about to sign a new contract, right? And we spoke at length, me and Les, on Blue Monday about the amount of stick that fella gets from every aspect of football across domestic in particular. Just to add to that, what John said before, I think you do get, I don't know, name any non-league club out the top of your head, and they turn up at England
Sutton
games.
United.
Yeah, I mentioned them. It's funny you said that. Did you listen to that on Monday?
I think that's probably where somewhere in my brain why I've got it in there.
Remarkable, remarkable if you didn't. But I was saying that their fans turn up and they come dressed as knights and all that sort of thing. You know, each their own, but that's their opportunity to go into top level football, isn't it? And I think many people who are in favour of international football, and I think we'll have listeners who are, particularly because Pickford's England's #1 goalkeeper. I think they look at that and think, well, do you know what? We want to see him succeed there. England's #1 chance and all that. I mean, I wince a little bit thinking about that and talking about that. But what you said about those stories, I do think that's quite interesting. I never really thought of them in any sort of deep perspective, really, given how much I don't like it. But you see a story like, remember when England missed out on Euro 2008 because of the cock-up by Carson in goal against Croatia? And you had McLaren there with his umbrella and all that sort of thing. I like that because England were getting beat. No, I like that because I'm seeing a story where someone who you think has probably got a load of bell ends there, and they get done and humiliated. I like that a bit more. I want to see an underdog story because Everton, let's face it, we've been underdogs for quite some time in most of our lives as fans. So I don't mind that. You're talking me into it here, Warren. I don't like you for doing so.
Don't worry, Warren. You won't be able to talk me around.
No, I'm not. I know that.
Anti-international. And as we say about the underdog story, I hope Faroe Islands and Cape Verde do. I hope they get, I hope Cape Verde have qualified, but I hope they get beat 22-0 in a game during the World Cup. I want to see them humiliated. I don't care about underdogs. Football's a meritocracy. And if the cynic, I'm not a cynic, but some cynics may suggest that these are rigged slightly to make sure that these teams get to qualify for the World Cup. So you can give them a little pat on the head. And
I think Italy, just looking at the tables, then Italy is struggling, and I think they've missed out on the last 2 World Cups. I'm right in saying, for a country as renowned as Italy, and won it four times. I think they've won it, or 3 times, whatever it is. For them to miss out on it is obviously massive. But I don't know. I think I'm a little bit torn because I'm not a fan of it personally, but I know, especially the South Americans, I mean, they adore playing for the country. They're so passionate and so, they feel that national pride, which maybe is lost on a few people in this country. And I think because the Premier League is such the juggernaut it is, and the way things are set up in this country, with the way we love our football on a Saturday, we love our afternoon game, we love our evening game to sit and watch, and we're so absorbed and so drawn in by it all. I think maybe that we see it as an inconvenience. And I think I'm just trying to make the point, I suppose, that I think with a lot of countries around the world, a lot of fans around the world, the national football is still international football story, is still a massive thing for them. So I don't know.
I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, I think we're in a minority here talking like we are. I think a lot of Blues, not just because of the Pickford thing, putting the Pickford thing to one side, I still think are big fans of international football and England going on and winning World Cup. You still get fans, I think, and again, within a minority, I think you're fans of many other clubs, Premier League ones included. You go back to those days there, which John mentioned there, with Terry and Ferdinand, and essentially they all came from those top 4 clubs, and you only get the odd 1 or 2 from other clubs who probably end up moving to them anyway. We were the same way. You think of Jeffers, obviously Rudy as well, where he ripped the Euros apart in 2004. That happens generally to us. So maybe that, I think that at the back of your mind is something that you really don't like it for, because if you've got somebody who goes there and is brilliant for, that's why I'm delighted Branthwaite doesn't seem to get a goal there, not on behalf of Branthwaite, but behalf of Everton, because still we're that club who somebody comes in for him, as we were thoroughly expecting throughout the summer, like Man United did, and getting him on board. I think if he goes and has a brilliant game, John Stones probably a good example. When they go and do that for the national side, then the cherry picked, let's face it, and the game is still like that. Regardless of how Everton are starting to get financial packages and getting ourselves to a level playing field in terms of a financial capacity, there are still clubs, there's still a hierarchy of clubs wanting to get international players in there because they're international players. Everton aren't that level yet, so you're not able to say, well, stay at us there when, you've got an opportunity to go and win titles left, right and centre. Everton are exciting at the moment, but in international football, I always think of that scenario of if they're sitting in the changes there or in training and you're talking to Jared Branthwaite, it's like, you've done really well. You're a top-class centre-back in the Premier League. What are you doing at Everton?
How much cheer on at Everton, that type of stuff, yeah.
All of that's still there. I think it's undoubtedly there.
Well, we've also got the worry where he thinks, I'm playing for Everton, I'm not getting picked. Maybe I have to move to get picked.
Yeah, there's that other side of it as well.
Which is, I mean, I am of the belief sometimes when I see an Everton player play, the Evertonian in me goes, they're going to get injured. I mean, it happened, I think, last month with Mikalenko, didn't he? He had a bit of an injury scare. And maybe he's not fully fit, and maybe that explains some of his performances.
It doesn't count with Mikalenko because he's always injured, isn't he? He gets injured doing anything. He's probably the weakest player I've ever seen in terms of physicality. And that's not having a dig at him because I think he's really come on as a player. But I'm more surprised when he doesn't get injured than when he does.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is, I think where I'm agreeing with you, Dave, in a sense, is that when I see a player go to international football, whether it be England or whoever, I always think, oh God, I hope they don't get injured because I want them fit for Everton. And when they come back, not injured and fresh, it's almost like a bonus, if you like. I think I am torn. And look, I've said this before on this show, we're going to have listeners who are very much fans of England and very much fans of the international scene. I do think, though, there is, especially in this country, I think there is a little bit of a apathy towards international football, should we say, especially when these international breaks come along. So I think UEFA do need to do something about it. And I think international football has always been held in a really... Yeah.
Just to interrupt, we're saying about these countries where they're really passionate about the national team. The majority of them are because the national leagues are shit.
Yeah.
That's a fair argument. Yeah.
We're not going to say about, everyone goes, oh, I'd love to go and see Boca Juniors play. But you only want to go and see them against Independiente or Newell's Old Boys or someone like that. You don't want to go and watch them against Rosario or someone like that. You want to see the game where there's going to be loads of people getting volleyed in the head. You would not watch a bog standard Argentinian football league game because the quality's shit.
Yeah.
So and they've got more national pride because their team. I'm not saying that they're not fervent about their support, but a lot of their identity is tied to the national, especially the old colonial countries like Argentina was a Spanish colony and things like that. But when you look at a lot of the colonial powers as such, like England, Spain, people like that, the fervour for the national team's not as much. But when you've had your identity suppressed as a nation for a long time, your patriotism shines through more and you become. So that's why these have got that. But for us, with Britain's the knobheads of the world, aren't we? We're the one who's gone around and shat all over everybody else. So we don't really have that sense of patriotism. We've got more, and I'm not saying anyone here, but we've got that sense of superiority, which you see all the time. So we become blasé about our nationality. And that's what I am. Shit about England.
I think the point about the leagues maybe where they're not as strong domestically, I think that is a very good point. I do think there is a certain, and maybe it is to do with the historical things that you've mentioned there, John, as well. I think maybe some of that is a degree to it as well. The fact that some countries are so patriotic about what goes on. But I think, just to round it all off, because we will finish, because we've almost reached the hour point here. But I think to round it off is just to say that I think UEFA definitely need to do something, and FIFA, I think they've got to work out how to maybe reduce the calendar and international football on the calendar, because it is becoming an issue with too many games. I think they've got to still keep the integrity of international football, because we all love a World Cup, we all love a Euros. I think when they come around in the summer, it's great viewing and it is great to see. And I think they need to try and find the values of what makes them so special and what has made them so special in the past, and try and get back to that. But I think certainly, something needs changing because it does feel a little bit of like a sigh and a shrug of the shoulders.
I love the World Cup and I love the Euros, but if we're being really honest, the last 4 or 5 have been absolute shit.
Yeah,
I mean, maybe it's a sense of being older and you've got that wide-eyed innocence now, but like you had as a child, like when you were younger. But I'd say since 2006, there hasn't been a World Cup where I've gone, wow, that was amazing.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I did enjoy where's the last Euros? Where's the last one?
The reason you can't remember is exactly the
Germany.
point.
It was Germany. It was Germany. I didn't. I did enjoy the last ones. I enjoyed watching them, and I think we're obviously set to host it, aren't we? And the Hill Dickinson's one of the host venues, which will be great. And I think that'll spike a bit of interest as well. You know, if we're able to see some national teams play at Hill Dickinson, I think that'll be great as well to see maybe another team. We'll end up with fans come to Liverpool and.
We'll end up the group with the Faroe Islands, Northern Ireland.
I wouldn't mind, man. I wouldn't mind.
Latvia.
But anyway, we'll
giving tickets away for free.
We'll leave it there.
Just one last word. Ban international.
Yeah, sorry. No,
I'll be happy.
I was just about to say actually before we go, because I was going to wrap it up. John, I know you've got quite an important message and quite an important thing that you'd want to just say. So I'll give the floor to you and you speak away, please.
Yeah. So for a change now, being serious, October is Restart a Heart Month. And this week especially is Restart a Heart Week. And it's basically teaching people in the public the basic skills of CPR and life support and how to use things like automated external defibrillators. Today, my job is a resuscitation training officer. And today we were at Everton in the community and we were teaching the stay and play group, the parents and carers, how to do pediatric basic life support. So we taught them how to do CPR, how to deal with choking and things like that. So this month is about raising awareness. So look on the British Heart Foundation website. There are places to go to where you can do it for free. It is the most vital skill that we'll ever learn, and you never know when you're going to need it. You know, I know I'm normally joking and clowning around, but this is something that's really close to my heart and something that I think it should be compulsory for everyone in school from the age of 14 onwards to learn, because it is the most important skill you can ever learn.
Do you know, can I just come in on that as well, by the way, because it's so appropriate that you've mentioned this, you know, John, because you might not have known. I know we've been working quite a bit, haven't we, well, certainly since the start of the season when you've been coming on the shows and stuff like that. It's so appropriate you mentioned this, because I don't know if I'll probably go off on a tangent here, so do bear with me, but I have a defibrillator. I have an ICD underneath my chest. Because in 2012, I was playing footy in a charity game when I was working at Radio City, and I went down and I couldn't get me. And if this, I don't mean to like scare people by this, but in terms of what was going to happen, that I thought I was going to pass away, because you can't get your breath, your heart's beating. My heart at the time when the ambulance eventually got to me was beating at like 240 BPM, which basically your blood can't get around your body enough. So I was really fortunate to get to Fazakerley, and they had to basically stop it was similar to what happened to Fabrice Muamba.
Yeah, was it a supraventricular tachycardia, was it?
Ventricular tachycardia, that's exactly.
And you had a cardio version.
Correct, that's exactly what it was. Yeah. And they basically had to, effectively declare you as dead because your heart stops beating.
Heart stops. It's a reset. It's to shock your heart back into.
Correct. That's what they did to me. And thankfully it worked, because I'm still here now. But the importance of it was so essential, because I remember when I went down, and a couple of, I won't mention the names of people who you probably know, like DJs and all that across the city, and former players as well. Graham Stewart was there, actually. He was playing for us, and Stuart Barlow were playing in the game for us. And when I went down, nobody knew what it was. Nobody knew what it was going to be. In fact, a couple of people come over saying, "Oh, do you think you haven't had enough water and stuff like that?" And I couldn't talk. I could say maybe a certain word, or and I said, so I managed to get out someone ring an ambulance. I managed to get that out of me to be able to say it, but nobody knew what it was to me. And this is 2012. This is 13 years ago now. No defibrillator on site. It was in, where can I describe it as? There's a 5-a-side centre near the civil service. It's in Litherland, if anybody knows of that area. And there was no defibrillator there on site. I know that there's a really good campaign that's always ongoing there with the government, and a lot of places do have them now as an essential capacity.
Yeah.
But I had none of that there.
You have to have them in schools now. It's legal. It's legal that you have to have them in schools now.
Oliver King, isn't it, Foundation? The young lad who died, and his mum and dad have done some absolutely brilliant work, absolutely inspiring people.
And I was, incredibly fortunate to be there because exactly hospital was about a couple of miles away, so you got me there quite quickly to get on with what I described there, and then I got sent to Pro Green. It was amazing. Well, I tell you something, we are so lucky in our city to have the places we do. As in for the children, we have all the hay, but for they're world-renowned places for medical expertise. That was so lucky we have Broad Green because I have to go there and get mine checked out. I had my battery renewed there earlier this year, which they're amazing now. Mine, it's so the technology of these things is incredible because I won't show anybody the scar I have there and I had it done inside of a couple of hours. Back when it happened to me, I was there for 8 days. So it shows you how far things progress with that. When it happened, I had to go for 8 days there until he put it in and then stay in the, what's it called when you're in an emergency part of it? I always forget the name of it.
The intensive care, HDU.
Yeah, I was in there for 8 days. Came out and it took me a while to get back to my feet and stuff, as you would expect. Yeah. Nowadays, I had to get my battery changed because I got into a fit physical condition, believe it or not, a few years ago. I decided not to get the battery renewed because it lasts about 5 or 6 years. And I decided to just leave it. And I got to a point where it started feeling, obviously got bigger and I've lost a lot of weight lately. But anyway, it was getting more and more intense in my chest. So I went to Broad Green and I said to them, "Look, this is how I'm feeling," stuff like that. So the doctor said to me, they're incredibly talented people, incredible at what they do. He said to me, "We can give you the option of getting your battery renewed." He said, "It's completely up to you because in legal terms, a doctor can't tell you what to do. They will suggest." No. So I said, "Yeah, okay." And I was shitting myself, thinking, I'm going to be in hospital 8 days again. He put me to sleep to put it in. He said, no, it's not like that. He said, "We'll get you booked for 7 o'clock in the morning. You can come in," he said, "and you can get your wife to pick you up at 12. And I said, that I was like astonished when he said that. I said, do you have to put me under asleep? He said, "No, we don't do that anymore either." Basically, just had to lie on a bed while he cut it open, pulled the battery out, put a new one in, made sure it worked. He didn't have to shock me to make sure it worked like he did when he had to put me to sleep. And got up. He obviously put all that stuff all over it that hooks it all together. And my wife come and pick me up at 12 o'clock. He said, "Crack on, go back to work tomorrow." And I was like, amazing. So it stresses the important what you're talking about there, John, in terms of teaching everybody what this is and what you see when it happens is absolutely essential, life-saving things that we all need to learn about. And like you said there, Warren, the compulsory to have them in schools as well.
Yeah, do you know what? Fantastic to both of you. First of all, John, for raising that awareness. With
just one little thing. Sorry, Warren. Just one thing.
Yeah,
if anybody's scared about using one of those defibrillators that you get in the street, other than putting the pads on and pressing the button, it tells you what to do. It does everything for you.
They're very simple to use.
I've done it from when
I did a first aid course.
Yeah. I mean, I teach them every day how to use them and the more complex ones as well. But for matter of ease, they're so easy to use. They're not. It's intimidating, and I know that, but it doesn't have to be. So get yourself booked onto a course through the British Heart Foundation. You can get them for free now.
Yeah. And we'll have all the information on this as well on the social side of things. Everywhere we can put it, we'll put all the information on so you can get involved and educate yourself on it. It's life-saving. Educate yourself because it can. I don't mean to scare people again. It can happen to anybody. It's not something that you look at and say, "I've been the doctors and he said it's like that." Obviously, a lot of people it does, but that sort of thing is so much underlying in people that you don't thoroughly know that it's there and it can happen. Obviously, 1,000,000 to 1 that can happen, but it can happen. So just cover yourself.
Yeah.
Wonderful. And just again, I was about to say, thank you, John, as I said, for, as part of your work, part of your job, but for sharing that awareness with us. And obviously, Dave, yourself sharing that story, because I think it just brings it home and just makes it a bit more realistic to people who think, it might not ever happen to me, but it definitely can, especially with some of the lines of work we have where we all work with, different people, and it can happen just on the street as well. So yeah, definitely,
you work in
definitely
PE,
something to be.
you work in PE.
Yeah.
That's almost an immediate essential requirement.
Oh yeah, I've got to know
Yeah.
it all. Yeah, I've got to know it. But yeah, wonderful to raise that up, and thank you both for sharing your story. And I think on that note, we'll leave it there. And my thanks to John and to Dave for another really great weekly there. We've talked about. We'll obviously be back for post-match or instant match reaction after the Man City game this weekend. The lads will be back as always with the byline and with Blue Monday as well next week. Dave, back with that.
That's right, yeah, and don't forget we've got a deep dive as well every single Thursday with Steve Dickinson and Becky Talentire. Brilliant shows of nostalgia, Everton history, and this one we're on at the moment is all about Ronald Koeman and how he came to the club.
That should be fascinating. Listen,
it is.
There's some great.
Yeah, I might have to skip that Koeman for a few years until my therapy's done about him.
But in a serious note, lot of stuff that he's done with Alex Young, Everton history side. I mean, it's an incredible listen. Some of the content they've got on it is mind blowing, really.
Yeah,
so give that a try.
I was just about to say I'm incredibly biased, but I think we're putting out a lot of great content at the moment on the Blue Room. So keep us subscribed, keep liking us on YouTube, keep leaving us comments, and leave us a review as well if you can, however you get your podcast, because it all helps to increase our listenership and get people listening to the great content that we feel we offer. We'll leave it there. Hopefully the Blues can get positive results against City, and we'll be back next week with another weekly. Up the Toffees. We'll speak to you soon.